Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. So excited about today's guest. Now, Danielle Egnew, you probably all know her already. But Danielle, I'm so excited because you were literally like, I think my third podcast guest when I didn't know what I was doing at all. And I don't know if you remember, it took about 2 hours to tape an hour podcast because Courage had diarrhea and I kept having to stop and go, I have to take the dog out. Can you? And you were so polite and kind as always. Folks, Danielle, I'm going to have everything in the show notes, but you want to go to DanielleEgnew.com. It's DanielleEgnewAdvisor.com, correct?
Yep. That's DanielleEgnewAdvisor.com. If you go to DanielleEgnew.com, you're going to get a shutdown website because I'm fixing it up right now.
Okay, that's what. Yeah, I thought that was. And she has a show called The Road Angel, which shows all that she does. She is I think it was a UFO magazine called you one of the most noted ufologists. And then this is my favorite because I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm going to say I'm right because it makes me sound good. I was going through the internet and I found an article called the top 10 psychics, and I think it was in the world, and you were number one, and I tagged you with it on Facebook, and you were like, wow, I didn't even know that was there. And
I remember that. I'm like, wow, cool. All right.
I know, you're never going to turn that down. And the list was amazing, and there you were at number one where you should be.
Thank you.
Now, I love your TikTok. That I'm so addicted because you talk to angels, correct?
Yes, I do. I translate them all day long.
And you teach people. That's part of your TikTok. You do little lessons on there.
I do. And you know what's cool about TikTok? And Karen, I love your TikTok stuff. I mean, honestly, all the different little pieces in there that are so dang good. The thing I love about TikTok is that it's positive. Do you know what I mean, sister? Like everybody in there is just so excited to learn, and they're so excited to share and ask questions, and it's really lighthearted in there, as opposed to some other social media sources where I think, dare I say it, as a 52-year-old person, some of the demographic on some of these other social media outlets is, shall we say, a little older, crispier, bitter, grumpier, whatever.
Yes.
God. So it's, TikTok is refreshing, I think.
It is. And you know what else is strange? And I don't know if it's my algorithm, but this is something I love because Twitter is just attacking. Not that I'm not on Twitter because that's where I try out my jokes, but Twitter gets so aggressive. And then Instagram seems positive, but also on TikTok, and maybe it's my algorithm, but I feel like it's not as filtered. Like I think when people are doing photos now, they're so filtered that we're starting to look humanoid. We're starting to not look like ourselves. And TikTok's a lot of people. I got out of bed and I had to tell you this. So I love it too.
Yeah, well, that's me. If you see me on TikTok, it's because I get this divine inspiration, generally from the angelic realm. They're usually kind of flicking me in the forehead with their angelic fingers going, hey, we have something for you to pass on here. And TikTok is so simple, right? It's like a minute, and then you get this great message out. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you seriously, Karen, I am really honored. I'm a little surprised by how much my TikTok page took off. I have a video on there. It was basically, I posted a video of my tattoo, trying to figure out how the platform worked, firstly. And then once I put the first video I put up there, I think it's goofy. It's like 145,000 views of it or something. But that shocked me to death that video got that many views. I was like, what is going on? So it's been kind of just a fun, lighthearted thing.
That doesn't surprise me because, well, for a couple of reasons, but because your content is not only positive, but it's always informative. There's always something to learn. It always catches and I'm in the industry, but it always catches my attention. I always learn something, and I think exactly what you're doing, not that it always hasn't been, but this is what people are grabbing for right now. This is what they need. We are in this very strange kind of dark night of the soul of the world where this has ended, but this hasn't begun. And I think not only your message always so positive, but you have the coolest hair ever.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I was looking at some of my videos, Karen, and I'm like, that is very Fraggle Rock. All right. This is great.
It is, but it goes with your uniqueness and your beauty and all of that. So, constant question. And for those of you that, I usually do background, but I'm almost going to jump right in. But I do love, but I don't love, but the story that stuck with me the most that kind of will set up for you all how psychic and intuitive Danielle is you were, as a young person, you went on a field trip to the Twin Towers and you had an experience on top. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, that was freaky. I was 15 years old, and keeping in mind that I was a kid from Montana, so going to Manhattan was a big fat eye-opener. And we went to the top of the World Trade Centers, as you do when you're touring New York, when they used to be around. And we were up it was the North Tower. And we were so high that I remember before we went up to that tower, I was standing on the ground and I looked up and the top of the North Tower literally disappeared into the low clouds that were hanging over Manhattan. It was the creepiest feeling. And my friend, who is now, since God bless his soul in heaven, my friend Jason Webinger, we were on a drama trip together. We were the drama team because I was that girl. So we show up there and I looked at him and I said, he says, "Are you afraid to go up there?" Because I guess I had a weird face on my face. And I said, not that I'm afraid of it. I said, but this shouldn't be here. And he goes, "What do you mean it shouldn't be here?" I said, "I don't know. It's just, this is too tall and it could, I didn't say it could fall down, but it was just in my head. And I said, I don't know, but this shouldn't be here. This isn't going to be here forever." And he thought, okay, you're crazy. So we went upstairs. And of course, if you ride the tourist elevators, if anyone who remembers, up those towers, they went quickly. So they shot you up to the sky. Your ears are popping in the whole 9 yards. And we get off and we're looking out the windows as people do. And I was fine. I actually don't have a fear of heights. So it was interesting. It was a great view. The choppers were lower than the top of this building. This thing was so tall. And all of a sudden I felt the floor drop out from underneath of you. Like if you were in the Tower of Terror ride in Disneyland, and the elevator just drops on you. And I grabbed this railing that was by the window. And my friend, who I was just talking about, Jason, he touched my back and he says, "Oh, it's okay. Don't have any fear of heights." And I said, "You didn't feel that?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" And the buildings, Karen, they did sway a little bit. They were built to sway in the wind so they wouldn't fall over. They were technologically amazing from an architectural standpoint. And I said, "No, the floor dropped out." And he said, "Oh, I think you're just having a vertigo thing, whatever." Well, I kept experiencing this. So I went away from the window thinking that I obviously was having some kind of vertigo thing I'd never experienced. Being a kid from Montana where there's no gazillion D4 buildings, So I was sitting in the middle of the cafeteria area, which was away from all the windows in the center of the building. And I was talking to another friend, and sure enough, that floor just dropped right up from underneath me. And I grabbed this railing because they had railings all over this place. And my friend was saying to me, "What's the matter with you?" And I had a security guard who came over. And he said, "Is everything okay here?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I just, "Can you feel that? The floor keeps moving." And of course, everybody just thought I was crazy or thought I was having a fear of heights thing. But I mean, I'm sorry. You know what it feels like when a floor moves out from underneath your feet. So I ended up right about the time the tour was closing and our class was getting back on the elevator. I was the security guard kind of walked with me to the elevator, because he was like, okay, we'll just making sure. He wasn't worried I was a hazard. I think he was afraid I was going to throw up or something.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sick. It was just this feeling of the floor dropping out. So we get down to the bottom and that was that. And I just thought, oh God, that was eerie. What a weird place. And then forgot about it until I was, gosh, what was I, 31 or 32 or whatever, 15 years later, when I got a call from a friend that I should watch the news because terrorists were attacking the World Trade Center, as my friend said. And I thought he was kidding. And so I got on, I was mad because he woke me up at 8 in the morning on a weekend or whatever it was. And I got up and turned on the news, and every channel, of course, had the smoldering towers. And right after I turned it on, it couldn't have been maybe 5 minutes, the first tower collapsed. Ugh. And I was watching it. It just makes me sick. I'm covered in goosebumps, and it is 102 degrees in Montana today. And it makes me sick. And I watched it fall, and then I remember feeling that floor dropping out. And I'm not being dramatic, Karen, when I tell you this. I couldn't stand up. Like, I fell on my knees, and I stayed in that funny position on my knees for 4 hours just watching television. And I just sobbed. I just sobbed and sobbed because I knew exactly what it felt like to ride that building down. And then when they were interviewing people later that said that as the building collapsed, they grabbed the railing. And they rode the building down. And I knew exactly what that felt like. Wow. And that is just burned into my brain. That was an unbelievable experience.
Well, that kind of makes sense, too, as like that. Well, I don't know. I'm getting to, I was going to say that you would sort of feel that dimension, that future dimension while you were there because it was so powerful.
Yeah. Yes. And Karen, you got to remember, I was 15, okay? And I was not really all that polished up with all these abilities psychically yet. I mean, I was talking to angels since I was 2. Quite frankly, I thought everybody was talking to angels. I did not think, I did. I'm like, what? You guys aren't hearing these guys too? What? But okay. This was something different. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. Well, and that's the segue. I know, because I heard when, before 9/11, throughout 2 weeks before, every therapist in New York was getting calls from all their clients, like everybody they had ever seen in their life. And they were all like, I don't know what's wrong, but I'm not okay. And I think it was that event was so, intense that it actually came before in time. That's a little, this is an optimistic one, but that's a little what I feel like right now is we're all sort of feeling like what's coming. There's something coming. We're feeling the shock beforehand, but we're not sure. But I don't know. Hopefully I'm just nuts, which is always, that's always a possibility. That shouldn't be an either or. It should just be a and. But let's get to, here is most, when I'm reading for people, one of the most asked questions is, how do you talk to your guides or your angels? And no one explains this better than you. Give us a lesson.
Oh, thank you. Well, honestly, angels will talk to us from the inside out. Because our soul is literally hardwired to the angels, and they are hardwired to us. So angels are actually some of the easiest spirit beings to communicate with. And think about soldering, like soldering a ring together or a chain link together. Angels are literally soldered to our soul mechanism, and we travel with those same angels lifetime after lifetime. So they know what our deal is. They know where all our kicks and kinks and weirdo stuff is. So when you want to communicate with them, angels will come through the heart chakra first. They come through our feelings first, and then those feelings will formulate into thoughts afterwards. So a lot of times people are expecting, Karen, they're expecting a big angelic voice to say, hello,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an angel. How can I help you? But, it's just not really the way they roll. You're going to feel them in your chest, and it will be an immediate, lightweight answer. Like, hey, angels, boy, should I call my mom today? You'll feel this before your question's even finished. You'll just feel this almost like a whisper or a feather of a word that will say, it'll just be like a, yeah. And it's not real emotional. And angels are not super emotional. Human spirit guides get all the emotional crazies going. Now, so if you've got a whisper that's coming from the inside, that oftentimes we think it's our own thoughts, that's your angel voices. Spirit guides, on the other hand, will tend to communicate through emotional mechanisms, because spirit guides were at one time a person. And angels aren't people. We don't die and become one. So they're a different type of being with a different communication mechanism. Whereas humans, or former humans, spirit guides, know what the emotionality is. So they will trigger different emotions to get us to understand where they're coming from.
That's a perfect, I'm gonna probe that just a little bit more, because that's a perfect. I had someone on talking about archangels and the difference in guides and this and that, and that is, and it's why he said. Now I have 17 questions I've written down already, Danielle, and we've just started, and I don't even write down questions. So I have them all in front of me. I had a very interesting experience that. And it was a clairaudient, which I'm glad that you said the angels talk from the inside, because I feel like people don't realize sometimes clairaudient is on the inside, right? It's not always a disembodied voice if you're clairaudient.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because I think this was a disembodied voice, but I was also waking up out of a dream, and I get the what I call the exciting clairaudient, which is the disembodied voice. And I have been obsessed with what the archangels really look like, because they talk about the one that Gabriel that spoke to Muhammad and scared him to death because of what he looked like. Muhammad spent 3 days in bed, and there was another one I can't remember. Was it Daniel? Well, that got very freaked out by what Gabriel looks like. And oh yeah, that's the good. That was there. So I'm a little obsessed with Seraphim, and I went to bed thinking about them, and I had a dream about one, and I was woken up by a voice that said, "Yeah, that's what we look like," and it was this is what you do best. I was always like, yeah, I don't really get. They're way up there. I don't really get to talk to them. And it was kind of like, I think that was them. And they were just like, yeah, that's what we look like. Like, what's the big deal?
And you know what, Karen? Angels will speak to us. They're messengers. Okay. They themselves are translators of timelines, quantum information, lessonry, the whole nine. So they will speak to us in a way that we will understand them. They don't talk to every single one of us in the exact same way. And girl, you're a straight shooter. You're like, here's the deal. And so it wouldn't surprise me that a seraphim, which kind of looks like something from a Harry Potter show, would say, yeah, that's what we look like.
Yes. Now, do you get to, and I'm sure after all this time, it wouldn't be as scary to you, but that's why I keep looking at pictures of them, because I'm like, I want to see one and I want to not be scared. Do they show you them in their real form? Like there's one that's a wheel and it has eyes on it and stuff. Have you ever seen that? Or you're like, I'm okay if y'all look like people. I have that deal with my guide. He looks like the Emperor card in tarot. And I'm like, that's our deal, dude.
Okay. So my deal with these guys is, they beam so many giant cubes of information, of densely packed stuff. They cram it through my crown chakra, and then I got to unpack it all. So my deal with them is, you don't need to come. You do not need to whisper in my ear. Don't do that. It gives me the crawlies. You don't need to tap me on the shoulder. I can feel you. I can hear you. And I have seen them on occasion. And they represent to me as these massive, powerful columns, at least the helper ones, our little worker bee angels. They're like these huge columns of light that are so powerful that you can't even look at it. I mean, you literally cannot look at it. It would fry you to a crispy. And so we have a little agreement that I don't need to, I can see them in my mind's eye. I'm good. And there are angels that are monstrous looking. We would think of them as monstrous looking. They're pretty freaky looking, so they might matrix with people and put on a Roman soldier outfit and hang some pretty dove wings on their back and maybe appear that way because we won't, crap ourselves quite as much if they show up.
Yeah, if they look cute. My friend had a dream, and I was in the dream, and she said, "Hey, look, there's Archangel Gabriel." And then she said, and I don't know how I felt about what he looked like. And again, she used the term kind of purplish humanoid, which always makes me think, I hope we don't hurt their feelings. And then I'm like, I'm sure you're not hurting their feelings if you think they look odd. But
and they don't have the same kind of feelings we do. They're not human. They don't have the same kind of emotional.
They're not codependent.
No, they're just doing their thing. And there's a lot of them that are weird and purpley. I went through a period where if people wanted, I would paint for them, because I'm an oil painter, their predominant angel that was their primary intercessor to their whole group. And this was really fun. And I get somebody on the phone and I just chat with them for about 15 minutes. And whichever angel wanted to show up would show up and represent itself the way that it wanted to be presented to that person. Well, I did maybe, 7 or 8 of these. And then I quit doing them because people were just terrified of what they were getting back.
Oh.
They're just like, they wanted Roma Downey, man, from Touch Like an Angel. God loves you. God loves you in all your struggles. Not this thing that looked like an alien hatched out of an egg from hell. They're just like, what is this? I'm like, well, that's the angel that walks with your light path. This thing is terrifying. I'm like, I just don't think I'm going to do this anymore. Okay.
Oh, I don't blame you. That is fascinating to me. It's so interesting because I know the veil is getting thinner. Oh, God, we're already to 20 minutes. God, I love talking to you. Okay, hold on a second, everyone. We'll be right back. Hang on. That's how I ease into a break.
Buddy, I just wanted to let you know about some upcoming comedy dates. You can see me August 26th at Flappers in Burbank doing my psychic stand-up show, my favorite show ever. 9/11, you can see me in San Juan Capistrano at the Camino Real Playhouse. You can see me in Decatur, Illinois. Is it Illinois or Indiana? If you live there, you should know. 9/17, September 17th, doing Dry Bar Comedy Live. You can look for tickets at Dry Bar Comedy Live online. The 24th, you can see me at Wise Guys in Ogden, Utah. And on the 25th, you can see me in Provo, Utah, taping my next Dry Bar special. Again, back at Flappers on September 30th, doing the Psychic Stand-Up Show. And the big deal, October 28th through the 31st. You can see me the 28th, 29th, and 30th doing my big Halloween show at Rosemont Zanies in Rosemont, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. And on the 31st, you can see me at Zanies in Chicago doing the same Halloween show. All right, everybody, hope to see you on the road.
Okay, so when I close my eyes at night, keep in mind, someone did my astrology, and the paranormal, they're like, no, you are the paranormal. It's like you're not going to paranormal places. It's coming to you. But when I close my eyes at night, I see the strangest things that are, and I don't know if they're all angels, but I sometimes I try to draw them. One of them kind of looked like the hermit card, but the face was all hair, and it seemed to have on steampunk glasses, but those were its eyes, like stuff like that. And I always think, your first thought is, am I just crazy? But it could be anything, couldn't it? It could be, it doesn't feel negative, but it was like, yeah, I stand in the corner over here.
Karen, you as a spirit reader, you as a human, I can tell you a lot about you because you're this massive channel. And that's why your comedy is stunning and hysterical, is because you're just pulling the most hysterical thing out of the ether that's the most unexpectedly ironic thing that is so silly and grand. And that's a channeling aptitude, actually. So one of your skill sets is to be able to go, you have a multi-bandwidth CB radio, if you can remember those in the 1970s. And your radio dial it's like one of the shortwave radios that has all of the different bandwidths and frequencies. So especially when you go down to lay down to sleep and your brain starts getting into that chill theta wave pattern, which is meditation, and especially for you personally, sister, right before you go from that theta to that delta wave, which is the real slow sleep state, right in that little sweet spot, you have a bunch of frequencies that are interdimensional. You've got a bunch of interdimensional bandwidths there that are coming in that in-between space. And that's where we get a chance to see some of these folks who are kind of funky looking, steampunky looking. A lot of times people think that ETs are interdimensional beings because they look so weird and different. So you're just open to it all. You've got a heart of gold, sister. And I think these entities are like, hey, we have 2 seconds before you pass into the delta zone so we can actually talk to you. Oh, crap, we lost her. All right, there it is. There it goes.
Oh God, thank you so much. You know, what's funny, all my astrology, and everybody always tells me I'm a medium, and I'm working on that because I haven't yet mastered that. Tarot's my thing. I feel good in my tarot, but I love that. That's what I keep hearing, that I'm a channel. Now, do you ever, but you're such a high vibration, do you ever worry, because there are fallen angels, and I am a little curious about darkness, probably more than I should. And I know we've had this talk before where you're not afraid of that stuff or demonic stuff. Do you ever worry, like, say, someone like me that's like, hey, I'm just going to try a channel, that something could go wrong, or is there a protection, or just it's about the faith?
For me, and I think probably everybody's just a little bit different, yet my personal experience is that my vibration when I go into this work is on a certain level of high frequency. Now, that doesn't mean I'm ascended or, I'm a high frequency person. Sometimes I can be a bummer. Ask my wife. I mean, it's just
You're
whatever.
a real person.
But yes. I'm walking around in a human suit just like everybody else. So what I think is interesting here, though, to that question, when I was first starting into really allowing myself to consciously engage with these gifts, because I was constantly unconsciously engaging them. But when I first started, I remember I was probably in my teens, 13, 14 years old. And that's about normal for, we kind of pop up as spiritual. It's normal to experience spooky things at that age group because we pop up on the grid, so to speak, like a radar. We boop, all of a sudden we're a little blip on the radar screen, because we fully acknowledge our spirit gifts, right? So all the little dark, creepy crawlies are like, ooh, what's that? And so they come around to see what the heck we are. And of course, when you're 13 or 14, something skulking around your room is certainly terrifying. However, I just wouldn't engage them. I knew they were there and they'd scare the crap out of me when I was that age, but I just wouldn't engage it. I never had a curiosity ever about, ooh, I wonder if I conjure a demon, what it'll do. I just always had this intrinsic knowledge that light is so much more powerful. It is so much more tremendous. It's what connects us all. That it's like I don't really have a curiosity about what the inside of a New York sewer looks like. I'll just watch a Dwayne Johnson movie and see it all, Yeah. I don't want to go to a sewer. I know there's sewers. Who cares, So for me, I don't believe a person necessarily needs to worry about encountering darkness, because it's the worry that will draw the darkness. And here's one more little thing I noticed over the years. You probably noticed this too. If somewhere in a person's subconscious, they secretly want to be scared, like a carnival ride, like say you're doing please don't do Ouija boards, people. No legit spirits ever come to talk on a Ouija board. These are like the ones that come to talk are like the drunk guys at the bar that nobody will go out with anymore. No, and they'll tell you I got a great job and I make $1 million. And they're the ones with the wives that at home and they're used car salesmen, and don't go to Ouija boards for spirit communication. But the honest to goodness truth, Karen, is that I don't worry about dark. And it, quite frankly, is not interested in me at all. It doesn't bug me. It doesn't come around me. It knows that I have zero interest in it. Ergo, I am not fun to play with. So it just doesn't bother. And I think if you're going to talk to spirits, if you do have a curiosity about it, you might just attract, what you're looking for. But if you really honestly don't, they just leave you alone.
And I've only had a couple of really quite like what when people are ghost hunting, if they don't know or they're investigating, everything's a demon. If it's not a human, it's a demon. They have no knowing that of the middle ground, or it's fae or whatever it is. But there's only been a couple of times where I was truly around demonic forces, and I will tell you, my body knew in every cell. And it was interesting because I got started, the very first person I met in investigations, who is still my best friend, he's probably going to shoot my next comedy special, is a demonologist, and he always taught me from the angle of protection. But we were once in a situation where he was even like, everybody had something follow them. Everybody had something happen but me. And he was like, you really have something that helps you, that protects you. And do we all connect to an archangel also? Because I feel like Archangel Michael, I have a tattoo with his name on it, because it's like, I feel like I'm either connected to him. Every morning when I wake up, I say gratitude for him and the protection I have, because I feel like I have mega protection. Does that just happen sometimes?
Well, yes. And the other thing too, doll, is it's your attitude. You have a sparkly attitude about life. And to your point about Michael the Archangel, Michael is, of all the archangels, quite honestly, Michael is the most people friendly. It really is, of all the angels. And out of them, it's the one that's going to get in there and kind of understand our process a little better. Gabriel is just flat scary. Gabriel's super to the point and gets a little irritated with the process of humanity, but that's not its job. Humans aren't really Gabriel's job. Now, that doesn't mean that Gabriel might not be an art guide for somebody. There's also going to be, whenever you have an art guide, folks, there's a bevy of worker bee angels with you every day in the trenches that are maybe reaching up and the art guide is throwing down some chips of help here and there. But as far as Michael goes, you have a huge Michael the Archangel prompt and help love. And a lot of Karen, I'm talking, and there's got to be a lot of people out there who relate with Michael. Mm-hmm. I have a Michael the Archangel statue, that I love, that he's just, of course, looks like a Roman soldier with wings on him.
Yes, very handsome.
Oh, goodness. Heck yeah, he's a good-looking guy, I tell you. And I will say really quickly to your point about paranormal investigation, I have encountered far more dark, nasty, gnarly, creepy, give you creepy, crawly goosebumps human spirits and elemental occupations that are pretty chaotic, that are mistaken for demons. I've encountered just barely a handful of demonic stuff. It sucks the air out of your lungs.
Yeah.
I mean, its ether is so different because they're from a completely different dimension than we are. So it's just, you can tell, but generally speaking, believe it or not, demons are not like super duper craving, wanting to be around people all the time. We don't feel super good to them either. So it's a weird balance in this field.
Yes, I did a episode with my friend Diet, and she channeled one. He's obviously a higher up one, and we won't do that again. But it was a good episode, and everything got a little funky after that, and then we had to sort of readjust. But it was a very educational. It was a very educational podcast, and then at the end, he channeled through her and said, and I'll come back and talk to you again if you want. And on the podcast, I went, oh, I'd love that. And then after I was like, no, that was the bait. You don't ever do this again. And so like I was like, okay, no. If you're going to keep now, you're really going to have trouble if you do that again. But it was very educational about how they used to be teachers, and they're trying to balance out light and dark. And, it was, it made a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people thank me for that podcast because it was helpful, but now I'm done. Now I'm over that. And
yeah, one and done, man. One and done. Yep.
Yeah, I think I escaped that one nicely, and we're good. Now, so somebody once, a guest I had on said, archangels are for emergency break the glass only. And the way we kind of came up with a analogy was because they are not human, like I say, I want to be the most psychic person in the world. My guides will go, well, here, read a book or start doing this. And an archangel may get you in a car accident where you bang your head and you become very psychic, but now you're in a body cast because because they know, they're like, let's get her from A to B. You said you wanted to be psychic, so we got it to you that fast. Is that a good analogy or not your experience?
No, that is 100%, sister. That is 100%. This is the thing, is that angels are literal. They are like an on-off switch. They have zero gray area. And their job is to help us maximize our highest design or our highest life path. And if you did smash your head in a car accident, you're in a body cast. And because you had to slow down, you're also going to learn humility, gratitude, all kinds of things that are necessary to be the world's greatest psychic, right? I mean, you're going to learn a lot in that experience. So I think that's an excellent analogy, quite frankly.
Okay, so I bother Michael a lot. And the new one, Metatron, well, he's not new. I guess new to me. Metatron. I know nothing about Metatron.
You know something interesting? I don't know much about Metatron either. And I'll tell you, the times when I have tried to kind of tune into Metatron, what I get is a palladium. And I'm like, well, you look and act and feel and talk just like one of the Palladian elders. And it's blue, it just glows blue over there. And so either my off-worlder, my ET, and my angel meters get a little fuzzy. Maybe I had too many martinis. I don't know. But, but really Metatron to me, and Metatron could be an arc. I'm not saying Metatron's not an archangel. I'm saying that there are blue angels, and a lot of times Palladians and angels are interchangeable because they're both a very high frequency. They're both quantum beings at this point. However, from an angel perspective, and obviously we're going to assume Metatron's an archangel up there. I've not really dealt with that being, except for maybe coming across it once. And so either it didn't really chat me up. It just kind of looked at me and smiled and kept going, and it seemed very busy, whatever it was. So, I don't want to lie and say, yes, I've talked to Metatron and this angel, blah. But I mean, it could be. It was blue. That's what I tell you. It was blue.
That's fascinating. So columns of light, is that why when I meditate, I always walk into a big, just light, that's all I can see? Or I sit in I call it pudding. Sometimes if I can't clear my mind, I meditate that I'm floating in pudding, in chocolate pudding, just so that there's nothing,
Wow.
there's just so that and it's not scary, but just so that it's dark, but it's about nothingness. It's not about scariness. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and really, I think the reason that not that I'm trying to sound, when we were talking about darkness, not that I'm trying to sound sanctimonious, saying, well, they don't come around me, I don't come around them, or blah. Mm-hmm. I'm not dissing on darkness. I'm saying that in my process, like you talk about pudding, the element, so we have a spiritual periodic table in front of us, right? And the element of darkness is very dense and heavy. Now, the element of light is actually much more dense, but it's tinier. It's teeny tiny. So for me, it's much more comfortable to receive information through the densely packed lighter particle, so to speak, than to immerse myself in the very heavy, slow bandwidth, suck the air out of your lungs particle.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And when you're talking about the pudding and the light and whatever, we are light beings. We are beings of light. So that's going to be our indigenous place to venture when we go out of our matrixed sphere of the mind.
Wow. So now people don't. I feel like when they talk to, because you did a great TikTok on the angels that they don't yell. They're not yelling. They're whispering.
Yeah.
I love that because I think when people say, I don't hear my guides, I think there's some people that do. And then that gets represented like, oh, they have to have a voice and they have to look like this. And I always say, ask them to look like what you need them to. I need my guide to look like the emperor. So that's what he does.
Yeah.
But do you think sometimes it's just people not trusting because they feel like there's a barrier between them and their guides? Can that actually be there or not really? It's more like us creating that.
I love this question. It is an issue of trusting the feeling that we have and understanding that those are our angels. We've been gaslit by society for 10,000 years, 5,000 at least of those 10,000 years, about what it is to feel spirit. And, we have to remember too, Karen, all of us came from the 20th century into the 21st century. And some people just started at the 21st century that was very informed by the intellectualism of the Victorian era forward, right? So why am I saying all that? Because all of that is intellectualizing something as opposed to feeling. And when we were in the time frame of the masculine, which we changed over to the time frame of the feminine on December 21st, 2012, in our masculine time frame, that was 100,000 years of humanity learning to rock the prefrontal cortex, right? And before that, we had 100,000 years of humanity in the feminine, which was all about songs and drawings and stewardship. And now we're back in the feminine again. So when we talk about hearing our guides or hearing it, I find that it's helpful to substitute the word hearing our guides to feeling our angels, because the angels will come through in feelings, and those feelings will transfer into this very transparent emotionless thought, like a little feather that just poofs out your ear. And like you said, I think people don't trust themselves that is what it is. I think they just think they're making up things in their gut.
Yeah. Do they actually touch us? I get a lot of people things, I should say, that play with my hair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've got human spirit guides, especially we'll noodle with it. Angels will touch you right on the top of your head a lot of times, or right in the back of your head. That little weird crown tickle that's like, quit it. Feels like I have a spider in there. Stop. That's an angel.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I can't believe the time's going by so fast. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, you having trouble with your kitty or your pooch or your penguin or your Neanderthal boyfriend? Either way, animal communicator Sonia King is to the rescue. You guys have heard Sonia on the podcast. She is one of my best friends. She has helped me out with Courage, a.k.a. the boss, so much. She has helped me when he was sick. She has helped me when he doesn't like his food. Sometimes he just pops in to tell her he's been very busy. That's the relationship they have. But whatever your relationship is with your little buddy or pal, Sonia can help you to understand what's going on. Whether there's an issue, you don't know if they're sick, they're acting funny, or they might just want to say hello. You might want to find their purpose in your life, or just wonder why they bite the mailman. But either way, Sonia King is your lady. You want to book a reading with her at soniaking.com. And that is just as easy as it sounds. SONYAKING. soniaking.com. Book a reading with her and find out what your little ones are thinking. All right, we're never even going to get close to all the topics I wanted to ask you about. But, okay, so this is just interesting. I don't know if this is... when you were saying about the feminine age, I always think it's funny that we always think everyone, like, we're the most advanced society. No society was ever as advanced as us. And it's not true. I read this somewhere. I don't know if you heard this, but cave paintings, they found that if you're actually holding a torch next to him. You know, the way the flame flickers, they look like a movie.
Yeah.
That it looks like a movie. Like there was some technology there that it looks like they're moving if you're not holding a flashlight, if you're holding a torch. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. That's absolutely interesting. And there was so much ancient technology that we find that, again, through the Victorian era, through the intellectualizing, the scientific era. Not that I don't love science. I'm a physics fanatic. I love it. However, it's part of getting back to the indigenous flow of our species. That, you know, we're a very empathic species, Karen, and we are Bluetooth to this planet. Yeah. And we're Bluetooth to one another. So that's fascinating about the torches.
Yeah. And since I'm going to be jumping topics, so folks don't look for segues or anything right now, because I want to get as much out of Danielle's brain as I can. So this is just when I was a little kid, I used to walk around and I used to say bussa gasa bus, and no one knew what I was saying. That's all I would say all day long, bussa gasa bus. And then one day on a whim, I Googled, because I was like, is there a patron saint of psychics and mediums? And there is, and his name is Agabus. And
oh, wow.
I know. And he, I forget his part. I have no memory. I get concepts. I don't get dates and times. But the Catholic Church named him, which is supposed to not like psychics and mediums. They gave us this saint, and I believe he predicted big floods and stuff like that. I can't remember which of the disciples he worked with, but would that possibly be a guide of mine?
Oh, heck yeah. Especially if as a child, you're wandering around with this, name or this partial name. Absolutely.
Okay. I find him fascinating. I can find nothing. I ask ministers. I asked a guy in Canada that did a talk on him to come on the podcast, and I think he was like, nope, not on a paranormal podcast. So a little bit about, do you have any feelings or anything or any advice for people, especially connected to how we should communicate with our guides or with the strangeness and the ascension of the planet right now? It just feels like again, I feel just a little lost, and I rarely feel lost, but it's not like my life is lost. It's like, what is around the corner? Is that just PTSD from what's going on, or are we literally being prepared for something?
Love, just as we spoke at the top of the podcast about New Yorkers who felt a pressure wave from the future coming regarding the Twin Towers falling down, couldn't put their finger on why, called their therapist, then something traumatic happened. You have to remember that the human species, in our DNA, we are all empaths. And some people have serious empathic gifts, yet at the very base of it, we are feeling creatures that have literally taught ourselves to think in certain ways. But we feel first, we think later. That's the way that we work as a species, and that's how our spirit communicates with us. So when we're talking about the world and what's to come, I'm generally not a feel lost person either, Lev. I yak with angels all day long. They're quantum beings. They have every possible outcome because we don't just have one future. We have many futures depending on which road we take. So they've got all this that they garble on about day in and day out. And still, with all of these different opportunities, I too have those feelings, I guess you could say, of feeling a little out to lunch there. And what I would tell you about all of that is that we do have some pretty big global changes that I think everybody's aware of. I mean, God bless somebody who's not. And you know what? If you're not aware of them, I wish I were you. I'm not even kidding. You go rock that. Go rock that joy. Okay. But really, it's nothing that we need to be fearful of, and it's just wise to engage these feelings, however. Now, I don't mean go off a cliff in paranoia and freak yourself out or go bury yourself in the backyard with 500 pounds of dried beans. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that, Karen, you're picking up inevitabilities that we are starting to see signs of with our water, and I would just super encourage everybody out there to be a wonderful steward of our planet, and let's all do our part and not run our water nonstop when we're brushing our teeth. Let's just turn off the water until we're ready to rinse our toothbrush, and let's do our part to be good stewards of the earth, because we all live here. And we're going to have an extended drought for quite a while. And I think we'll be way more ahead of that drought if we all get on board and are consciously participating in solutions at this time. So I don't think that you feeling lost is out of character, love. I think it's honest. And I think it's the best we can do to be honest with each other that, yes, our planet is changing. Yes, our society is changing. Yes, our economics in America are changing. And the only thing we have control over at this point, Karen, is how we choose to respond to all of that input. So if we can just go into being proactive stewards, be trusting of one another, be supportive of one another, we're going to get through this rather unique next 20 years. That'll be our opportunity for the smoothest roll possible.
Yeah, I always have the feel two things, which is it's always going to be okay, and this is the game. And it's almost like, we always went to the movies. Now we're in the movie. We're in the movie now. So we have
yes,
to do our part. A quick thing on aliens and UFOs. Are all aliens that I know some people believe all aliens are good, and some of them believe they're not all good. Some of them are not necessarily. They may even be. I know, like when Travis Walton, who was from that movie A Fire in the Sky, he had a terrifying experience, and he said, "I don't think they were trying to terrify me. I think they had a different agenda, but to us it's terrifying." But are there actually kind of nefarious aliens out there?
Yeah, there are. Just like people, Karen. Not all people. Well, actually, I'm one of those wackos that believe that all people are born beautiful, amazing, and good, and then bad things happen to people and they make weird choices from that point. However, there are alien or ET, I like to call them our off-world cousins. We do have off-world cousins who operate in a completely different way than we do. And we would consider their culture or morality to be terrifying or to be brutal. To them, it's not. They're just different than we are, And maybe it kind of reminds me of Star Trek. You had the Klingons. Come on, man. Were the Klingons really awful, or were they just into their culture of war? It's so there are ETs out there that are crispy, for sure, societally. However, we don't encounter many of those at this point, at least not here on Earth. We may encounter some of them once in a while, and most of those beings that we encountered that were crispy either learned that they were causing us harm and it was scaring us to the point where they should probably stop. And because they're so unlike us, they didn't get the memo out the gate. And then they're like, oh, these people are crapping little green apples. We should probably not do that to them anymore. Wow. Sorry, you guys. But there are some pretty nasty.
As a siren goes by, I don't know if you can hear that in the background. I was like,
that's fantastic! Emergency, danger, Will Robinson, danger. But most of the ETs out there that interface with the planet, the folks from Sirius AB, I talk to these guys all the time. The Pleiadian races, the Oturan, which people call Arcturians. They're from Oturan, is how they pronounce it.
It's like Iran and Iran. It's this Iran.
There it is. Tomato. Yes. They're all of those races are very helpful and good. And yeah, there's a few Christies out there. They don't noodle with us as much though anymore.
Do we actually have DNA? I'm supposedly from Orion. Well, okay. So the theory that this one's a little creepy, so I don't know, but there was that great, I don't know if it was a hoax or it was real, but it was great, the UFO footage of the gray, he looked like a gray, that came, the Air Force was talking to him and the one guy was working with him. I'm being so vague about this. Well, one of the things he said that they were us in the future, and they're coming back to try and help us not be them in the future. Does that make any sense, or did I just hack that, or is it made up theory? Does that make sense to you?
Well, first of all, I'm cracking up because that apparently is a theme. I wrote a screenplay about that exact thing in 2006.
Woo.
So that's weird. We do have dimension bending visitors that once in a while will try to weigh in. Our galactic races, God, okay, how do I bullet point this? Our galactic races, a lot of them are Sirius AB folks. They are the terraformers, the great explorers. They're the ones that helped build our pyramids, okay? Then the Oturan came, and they were huge influencers in the Eastern religion area, in China, in Japan, in Indonesia. That's why they have the same kind of pyramid shapes that they have from on Otur are the same types of things that you'll see in Angkor Wat and all these different places around that neck of the woods. And they helped bring us a nod to Taoism and Buddhism as a modality of being here on the earth. So when you're talking about genome, we do have a lot of, and this is really, if you didn't think I was out there before, folks, now I can give you the zip through to seal the coffin closed with. We do. If you have a prefrontal cortex and you've never met an alien, then go look in the mirror because you just met your first one. And those were from Sirius. And they came down and they were trying to help I just did a podcast on this, as a matter of fact. They were trying to help our race out. And not all people were genetically noodled with, just a few, because they had watched the hominins that walked around the earth. They watched these hominins that were this beautiful empathic species get wiped out time and time again by, volcanoes and natural effects. And they figured, hey, maybe if these guys had a little more critical thinking pattern, this sweet little race could just do a little bit better. And keep in mind, there are folks from Sirius AB. Like I said, they're the folks who came and helped build the pyramids in Giza and all the other things. They're the builders, the terraformers. Like if they were an astrological sign, they'd all be Aries. The great optimists. We're going to go awesome together. And then, just go a little sideways, and they're like, oh, shoot. Well, that wasn't supposed to happen, you guys. Come on, man. So we do have a lot of off-world DNA in us, and we've got some of that Oturan DNA. It's interesting because in order for us to find Otur from here, the biggest wrinkle in space that'll get you there, because it's not necessarily in our quadrant of the Milky Way. From our perspective on Earth, you might think this is interesting, Karen. You've got to go out, you would go, quote, through Orion, between the middle dot on the belt and the far right one. And you keep going right through there and past there. And obviously that's not actually a shape in the sky, but it is from our perspective. And you go out that way, and there is apparently the wrinkle in space that you pass through to get to where they're from. So I think that's interesting that somebody said you're from Orion. That's an actual direction.
Yes, it's actually one of my favorite jokes in my act, because she told me I was a captain in the Orion Interplanetary Army. So I called my sister and I told her, and my sister said, Orion is a constellation, not a planet. And I said, really, that's all you saw wrong with that statement?
That's fantastic. I love it. Oh my God.
So this is, I know my listeners are probably sick of this, but I have so much fae activity, both good and bad, around me. Can human beings be, could I be partial fae, or those are two different races, they don't mix? Or could I just be somebody that the fae find interesting? There's like, even what I eat, a kitchen witch was like, you eat all fairy food. And I was like, oh God, there it is again. Or are they different?
That's the thing, girl. That's the thing. You got to remember, before humans ever walked the earth, the elemental beings were the stewards of this place. It's even referenced in Genesis, because when Cain kills Abel, and they're supposed to be the only people on the planet, right, according to the story, then Cain gets kicked out to go live with people in the mountains, it says in Genesis. So there were elemental beings here, and they do kind of surf space-time. They go through vortexes. They go through all kinds of little wiggles in space, so they don't always have to occupy the same physical space as we do. You might have noticed that humans are a touch violent. So the elemental kingdom, absolutely, they bred with human beings for the longest time. And eventually there are areas in the world where there's a higher concentration of elemental DNA in people. You find that in the Celtic nations. You find it in the Nordic nations. You know, these are areas where there were more portals to come through. So there was more parties going on between the species back in the day. And yeah, that's actually a real thing.
Wow, that's interesting, because sometimes when I think that, sometimes I almost you can almost see the tribe that people are from, sort of. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And well, I know in Ireland they still are afraid of fairy hills, or you know what I mean? Like they're still like, don't mess with that. But I went on the wrong side of Fae, and then I think I'm on the right side. They like you, but once you start to love the earth, they like you better. Okay, two last questions.
It's true.
Yeah, they want us to take care of the earth, right?
Yes. They feel the earth, and the earth is alive. It's not an analogy. The earth itself is a being. It is alive. And it's interesting because even in our First World Nation, our Native American people here on the North American continent, talk about Father Sky, Mother Earth. And you look at the Christian Bible, and it talks about the Father in heaven. Well, you can't have a father without a mother if you're going to have children. So who's the other half of that God source, right? So yeah, Earth is a being, and our elemental kingdom and our elemental beings.
Hey, everybody, I know that was a very strange place for that to end as a terrifying motorcycle goes by, but I ran out of room in my SD card. So that was Danielle Egnew, and she is just fantastic. You want to follow her on Twitter, on TikTok, everywhere. You can find her at DanielleEgnew-advisor.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Sorry about the abrupt ending. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media, and I'll see you all next week.